All right, hey, what's up? We are back with some updates for The Day Before. You know that game that's still scheduled to release in 6 weeks? What's going on with that? Well, I've got some news about the game itself, recent developments over the legal battles for its name, and also updates on what the studio, Fantastic, has been up to recently. Lots to sift through here today, so strap in. And let's get into it. While there has been a lot to follow with this story, no doubt one of the biggest, most important aspects has been the trademark dispute, as that is the reason The Day Before is no longer available on Steam, and since, so far at least, it appears they're not looking into other methods of distribution, no Steam page means no game release. So let me catch you up to speed with the Trademark timeline of events. So Fantastic revealed their game, that initial trailer, in January 2021. At that time, the name The Day Before was free and available for Trademark in the US, but for whatever reason, they didn't file. Then in June 2021, 6 months after the game got revealed, a person named Soon-Jae Lee filed a trademark application with the US Patent and Trademark Office. This was for a calendar app that they had made called The Day Before, one that was already trademarked in Korea since all the way back in 2015. After that, in January 2022, Fantastic finally submitted their application for trademark for The Day Before. Mind you, this was 7 months after Soon-Jae Lee filed his, and a full year after they revealed the game. In August 2022, Soon-Jae Lee's trademark was then published for opposition, at which point Fantastic could have stepped in saying, we want that trademark, we're using it for the game we're making, so we're gonna oppose. At least that's what should have happened, but it didn't. Now, Fantastic claimed to have not known at the time that this was occurring, or if they did know, they simply didn't do anything because come November 2022, the opposition window was closed and Soon-Jae Lee's trademark for The Day Before was approved. That same month, because this happened in November, according to the official records from the US Patent and Trademark Office, Fantastic received a notice that stated their trademark request had been denied. So all of this then resulted in Valve removing The Day Before from Steam due to trademark infringement. Videos also got removed from YouTube due to trademark infringement, although interestingly enough, not all of them were removed that had Day Before in the title, just a select few were. And court cases were filed in both directions between Soon-Jae Lee and Fantastic over the disputed trademark. Now, up until recently, all we knew was that court cases were underway in both the US and Korea, and that it was highly unlikely the game would be returning to Steam or get released until these things were resolved. Well, we got some important updates. First of all, the one case that's happening in the US was actually suspended in early August. The reason for this being that Soon-Jae Lee, the original trademark holder of The Day Before, requested a pause of the dispute pending the outcome of the case in Korea, to which the US Patent and Trademark Office obliged, basically saying, once that dispute is sorted out, we'll continue with this one here. So the US case got suspended or put on pause, basically. Well, not too long after that, there was an update on the Korean case. It seems to have resolved, and get this, it went in favor of Fantastic. So what happened was Soon-Jae Lee's Korean trademark was registered under a whole bunch of different categories, including computer game software. But it's not computer game software, as we've covered, it's just a calendar app, something to basically keep track of things like your appointments. So basically Fantastic said, hey, we are making a video game called The Day Before, and we would like to register a trademark for it specifically as computer game software. To that, the Korean court said, all right, yeah, that makes sense, that's fine. So Fantastic won that case. The part of Soon-Jae Lee's trademark that was filed under computer game software then got removed, and now in Korea, Fantastic will have a trademark for The Day Before as computer game software. So now with that case resolved, it means the suspension in the US case should soon be lifted, and I would assume that with Fantastic winning the Korean dispute, it'll make it all the more likely for them to win the US dispute now that there is precedent. This seems like the likely outcome, although it's not guaranteed, and also who knows how long it's going to take for this whole thing to resolve. Now, I want to mention as well that I caught wind of these latest updates thanks to a video that Kira did a few weeks ago. I highly suggest giving that a look. He's done a great job of keeping up with this whole story as it's evolved. He also seems to be one of the few people tracking this who's willing to dive into the legal paperwork, revealing all of this information, as most everyone else just wants to read articles that were posted on gaming press sites. So he's really going into the weeds and is very thorough about this stuff, which I really appreciate. So yeah, check out that video. So everything's sorted, right? They're going to have the trademark now in the US. At least it seems that there's a high probability that that's going to be the case. They've already gotten the go-ahead to get the trademark in Korea. Now that that's lifted, should be getting it here in the US, which means it should be returning to Steam, right? Hold up, because that's not all. Things get even more interesting as it looks like Fantastic are planning to rename the game from The Day Before to Day World. Day World? On August 3rd, Mytona Fantastic Limited, which is just the name of the combined efforts of the developer Fantastic with their publisher Mytona, they filed a trademark application for Day World. Now, this could be for another project they have in the works, but with it having Day in the name, and considering that they still have the ongoing dispute in the US, although that is going to resume now that the Korean case is done, we don't know how long that's going to take. It could be months before it's finished. So this is leading some to believe that them filing for Day World means that they plan to rename The Day Before to Day World so that they can get the game on Steam and release it as soon as possible. That might be the case, it might not, although it does seem likely. Here's the other part. Their application for Day World is currently in progress, listed at the moment as awaiting examination. Now, I took a look around and it doesn't appear like there are any other trademarks for Day World listed in the US. However, Day World is the name of a book series that was originally published back in 1985. So if they do in fact change the name of The Day Before, get the game on Steam and list it as Day World, there is a chance that they could end up dealing with another trademark dispute that pulls the game down again. Although yes, from what I could see, Day World, that book series, isn't currently trademarked in the US. The fact that it's an existing thing that has been around for nearly 40 years could potentially complicate things. I don't know one way or the other, that is just a guess, but it certainly means everything's a little bit more hazy than what it would appear on the surface. As of today, though, the game is still called The Day Before, the US trademark dispute is still ongoing, and the Steam page is still non-existent. Everything discussed so far only pertains to the trademark fight and the game that might get a brand new name, but there is still the whole other aspect to the story of the developer's track record with prior games, how they've made some odd choices in marketing this game, and their history of being less than forthright is the nice way to put it. The massive list of red flags surrounding this game and the developer include, for one, many believe nearly everything they've shown so far appears to not be authentic gameplay capture, but rather looks like heavily scripted footage recorded in vertical slice environments. In other words, looks like it's more of a tech demo than an actually fully fleshed out and near complete video game. Then you've got their very public and proud use of unpaid volunteers working on the development and support of The Day Before. Despite having at one time being the most wishlisted game on Steam, they evidently haven't acquired the fundings and the financial support in order to pay these people. From what I could gather, it seems like they have more unpaid workers than paid workers on their development team. On several occasions, also, they've marketed big reveals for The Day Before. Stay tuned, huge news for The Day Before. They've been leading up to these announcements that ended up turning out to just be reveals of other products that they had in the works. The old bait and switch, as we call it. This first happened with their game Prop Night, and then later on, it took place with their Teams equivalent app called Continent. Then there is also the fact that they've delayed The Day Before 4 times, and 2 of those delays happened like a few weeks to a month prior to the planned release date. The first one of those last-minute delays was reportedly to upgrade from Unreal Engine 4 to Unreal Engine 5, which I don't dispute happened and is a good move all around, but despite that, the game's visuals have clearly degraded with time. That initial reveal trailer in early 2021 with the game running on Unreal Engine 4, that looked massively more impressive visually than the most recent gameplay reveal that came out earlier earlier this year. And that second last minute delay happened because of the whole trademark dispute situation, which we just recapped. That dispute, by the way, don't forget, they claimed to have no clue about it ahead of time, resulting in Valve removing the game from Steam all of a sudden, which then forced them to delay the game because, hey, our game's not on Steam anymore. This trademark thing happened. We had no clue about it. It's off of Steam. So guys, I'm so sorry we have to delay the day before for the fourth time. But that wasn't true because we later discovered, since the entire trademark process is public record, you can see every step of it. Fantastic absolutely knew that there was an issue, likely back in August of last year, if not at the latest. They knew in September when they were sent a notice that their trademark was declined. At that time, clearly they would have known something was wrong. Despite that though, yeah, they came out and they publicly said, oh wow, this trademark thing happened. We didn't know about it. Valve took our game off Steam. This is all a huge surprise. I'm so sorry everyone who's been waiting for the day before. We are just gonna have to delay the game again. So that's what they said. And then a few days after saying that, they spoke with IGN in an interview and were like, actually guys, we were planning to delay the game prior to the trademark issue, which means their entire statement about being blindsided, forcing the fourth delay, they just straight up lied. Like in the period of a week, they made this huge statement and then they turned around and said, nah, we were just joking. And then after that whole debacle, we got that 10-minute gameplay trailer, which had a handful of its own issues. It revealed the developer's use of unaltered, straight from the store bought assets, some of which, you know, make sense with things like the emergency public service vehicles, ambulances, and fire trucks. Yeah, you don't need to change those much. They've got a pretty generic look. But others just came across as a rush job, with them not wanting to put in the effort to literally make any adjustments with just like general things, literally without a single bit of change, or even roughing them up or changing the lights or whatever. But you know, they did nothing. They just didn't put in the effort. But the thing that stood out most was the intro. It was a short 5-second clip that was nearly a one-for-one, shot-for-shot identical ripoff of Call of Duty Black Ops trailer. Like the scenes, the framing, the colors, the camera positions, everything simultaneously, one after the other, nearly exactly the same. Again, pointing to a real lack of effort, a real lack of trying to just not rip people off. And it also continued the developers' tradition of ripping stuff off. Oh, I mean, of inspiration, right? It's just inspiration. Inspiration to the point of infringement, but inspiration. Things like the near identical logo font and framing to that of The Last of Us. These things look practically the same. And we had several screenshot examples of nearly identical composition framing. What's in frame? What do you see? Where's the angle of the camera? Looks very, very similar to that of other games. Is it the end of the world? No. Does it mean that the game needs to be deleted from existence? No, but again, just points to a lack of trying, a lack of effort. Before not too long after revealing that trailer, it was pulled off of YouTube. They will claim for copyright infringement, although there are plenty of other videos on YouTube that have the day before. I would assume all of those would go if some of them would go, but who knows. Get all that. Literally, like, wipe your memory. Men in Black, flash your memory, you forget everything. Let's just take a look at the development studio. The people making the day before. Fantastic. What games have they made so far? Were they any good? How long did they support them? Well, Fantastic's most recent game, Prop Night, the Dead by Daylight prop hunt mashup, launched in December 2021. So how is that going? It looks like the last update for this was back in May, when they released a patch in collaboration with their volunteers that added a new map as well as a bunch of balance changes. So that was May. In the 5 months since then, there have been no updates, neither to the game itself or post about the game on any of their social platforms. Currently, I do want to point out that Prop Night's average player count hovers between 100 and 400 daily concurrent players, and review scores on Steam sit at a mixed rating, both the recent reviews and the overall review score. Now, to their credit, this looks to be the best game, the most successful game that they've released thus far, and it's also the longest time they have supported a game post-launch by a wide margin. If you don't recall, the developer's prior titles were both abandoned very shortly after release. Now, Fantastic was founded in 2015. Their first project, The Wild 8, was like this top-down survival action game. It launched into Steam Early Access in February 2017. A couple months after release, the Steam reviews were mixed. The player base had dropped all the way down to an average of 100 concurrent, and then mid-2017, less than like half a year later, Fantastic publicly said, we're abandoning the game. game, we're stopping any updates. In fact, we're selling the rights of the game off to the publisher, wiping their hands clean. They're done with it. They're moving on to their next title. That was Dead Dozen. Dead Dozen was a first-person multiplayer horror game, which they once again released into Steam Early Access. This one came out in March 2018. Mind you, that is only a single year after releasing their prior game into Early Access, so they made this in the course of a year. Unlike the Wild 8 though, which at least lasted a few months, Dead Dozen flopped immediately. It got nearly entirely negative reviews, with users claiming it was full of bugs, had poor performance, was constantly crashing, and simply put, wasn't a good game, as evidenced by the player count, which reached a grand total peak of 81 concurrent players. That was at launch, and then a week after launch, that number dropped all the way down to like 14 or so. Then in June, merely 3 months after entering early access, Fantastic announced that they would be ending further support and development for Dead Dozen because, well, it was a bad game and nobody was playing it. So in the span of roughly a year and a half, Fantastic launched and abandoned 2 early access games. Now, their most recent title, Prop Night, is technically still being supported, although as I just covered, it has not seen an update in 5 months, and both the player count as well as the reviews paint a pretty ominous picture. Point being, as mentioned in previous videos on this topic, they have just simply not had a good track record. Every single game that they've released has done poorly. They abandoned the first 2, and I think the only reason that they haven't dropped Prop Night yet is because they have a much larger spotlight on them, thanks to the popularity of the day before, the interest that people have in it. Now, do I expect developers to continue working on and updating games that have no player base and that nobody likes? No, not really. Not at all, frankly. But when we're discussing what was at one point the #1 most wish-listed game on Steam, I do think it's fair to take a look at the developer's history and say, hey, what have they made? Did people like it? And how long did they support it? And the answers to all of those questions are not very great. So right now, we are roughly, believe it or not, 6 weeks away from the day before's scheduled release date of November the 10th. The last major official update for the game came in February. That's when they published that Life at Fantastic vlog. And this was, as I covered in last video, surprisingly, this was pretty good in the sense that it included footage of what looked like an authentic game. They showcased how the day before had progressed between 2019 and today, mainly with the fact that it got a visual overhaul. If you didn't catch it last time, the original iteration of this game had sort of a more stylized cartoon aesthetic, which they then ditched in favor of the more realistic look seen in the game's reveal trailer from early 2021. Although that too has since clearly changed. The most recent gameplay footage, which came in February as well, that revealed that they kind of reined in the realism a bit with a little lower res textures and more of a slightly stylized look. It actually appears to be sort of a blending of what the game was in 2019, at least with things like character design, and what we first saw of the game, which was more hyper realistic. Now, that vlog also displayed, to their credit, way more mechanics for the day before than we had seen in everything else prior combined. We saw groups of characters running around the environment doing all sorts of stuff, you know, fighting zombies with ranged and melee weapons. We saw them driving vehicles through snow, mud, and even crashing them into buildings, and those buildings appeared to have some sort of voxel destruction. We also saw characters like shoulder charging through fences, taking on zombies, placing down campsites. All of it actually looked decent, but more so appeared to be like a real, authentic display of gameplay with various mechanics and systems on showcase. That video, in my opinion, was the most genuine feeling thing that we have seen about the day before compared to anything else in the past. But yeah, that was February, 8 months ago. Since then, the only official updates have been a 1-minute hot tub video that they just posted a guy sitting in a hot tub. There was a 30-second clip of a sports car driving through the city that appears to be, again, an in-engine cutscene and not a gameplay showcase. And then other than that, there's just been a couple of social posts, like on Twitter or X, whatever it's called. They sent out a tweet that was quote tweeting something they themselves had said, and the quote was, "The day before will be at the top of Steam wish list again soon." Good luck with that, guys. And then also they posted this exclusive interview with Well Played. I did cover that in the last video. Frankly, not much of substance came from this. Now, their most recent post, which was on August the 2nd, read, "Get ready for the best survival experience of the year, November 10th, with another picture of a car." They really like, is this a car game now? What is happening? So it's been nearly 2 full months since that last post. Till they say otherwise, the game is still supposedly on track for a November 10th release. But with the fact that the legal disputes over the Day Before's trademark is still technically ongoing in the US, the fact that they've just recently filed a new trademark for Day World, which they may or may not be changing the game's name to, and with the fact that they have not yet returned to Steam or any other PC distribution platform under the Day Before or Day World, and with the fact that we were promised a beta prior to release, and that beta, as far as I've seen, looked everywhere, doesn't look like a beta is currently underway. With all of that being the case, the idea that this game is 6 weeks away from releasing seems highly unlikely. I would be astonished. Now, my current expectation is that sometime soon, we're gonna get an announcement of yet another, I believe this would be the 5th now delay for the game, and they'll likely cite anything, a trademark issue, the fact that they wanna change the name, with the fact that Steam isn't letting them have another storefront, or I don't know, they could come up with other things depending on, maybe they release another game, for God's sakes, who knows. But you know what? I hope I'm wrong. I really do. I hope my prediction is incorrect and that come November 10th, I am logging in and playing the Day Before or Day World or whatever. I don't care what it's called, because boy, it has been a hell of a ride just following the development of this game. I need to see how it turns out. My expectation is it'll be a total train wreck if it does actually release. I would really, genuinely, honestly prefer if this game were real, if it were amazing, and they just proved everyone wrong. That would be game of the year. I want this to come out and be game of the year. That would be the best possible outcome in my eyes for all involved. Fantastic, and us included. So yeah, good luck, guys. Hope your game's real. Hope it's ready on November 10th, and hope it comes out and it's amazing. We'll see soon. 6 weeks from now, we will see. That's it for today, though. Thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed the update. I'll see you next time.